Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy podcast. Each week, we expose the faulty foundational mindsets of the past and rebuild a newer, stronger foundation essential in creating your meaningful legacy. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. As much as you like this podcast, I'm certain that you're going to love the book that I just released on Amazon, Fuel Your Legacy, The 9 Pillars to Build a Meaningful Legacy. I wrote this to share with you the experiences that I had while I was identifying my identity, how I began to create my meaningful legacy, and how you can create yours. You're going to find this book on Kindle, Amazon, and as always on my website, samknickerbocker.com. Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And again, we've got another incredible client of mine on the show. He is actually the husband of probably the most incredible woman, his wife, Trista. You know, out of the two of them, he's the clown that adjacents her most of the time. No, he's awesome. Ken Harrison has an incredible background in the military, been serving for a super long time. From my perspective, he's probably been in the military as well, just slightly less years than I've been alive. So, no, but really, I'm excited to share him with you. I'm curious because every time I meet with somebody, it's always a little different. But Ken, when was the first time that you saw me speak or met me?
So I went to one of those workshops, and it's probably about 7 months ago, 6-7 months ago. I was very, very reluctant. My wife's like, you got to go. This place is amazing. Great speakers. I was like, I don't need people telling me how to live my life. And I went, and you were actually one of the speakers. I'm like, oh, I mean, they're talking about the different speakers, and they're like, oh, yeah, this guy's a good speaker, and he's comfortable with people. I'm like, and right off the bat, I'm like, yeah, you know, you connected well with people. So I was like, he seems like an all right guy. And then the more I got to know you, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dude.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm curious because I'm always curious what the people in the audience think of my speeches, and I never. It's interesting when you're in public speaking. I don't know. You've probably seen this in leadership positions in the military, but you don't actually get to get feedback from the people that you're trying to influence. At least not right away. Like maybe after you go and meet with them, you do, but like right away when it's fresh in their mind. You want, like, I don't know, it's almost like just a public speaking thing. You make yourself kind of scarce so that they have to set up a time to meet with you to actually talk to you. So like, it's this weird dichotomy where like, I want the feedback, but I don't want to go out there and diminish, just like give everybody access to me because I want you to sign up to meet with me. So, so it's this weird thing, but I'm curious, like, what were your like initial thoughts as far as, did you feel like what I offered was helpful, or did you feel like you learned things just from my speech?
I felt like I learned things and you were helpful. Also because, so what I pride myself on is I'm always a real dude, and I keep things like honest and blunt. And just by you sharing your background and where you came from, but you didn't come off to me like you were trying to sell me. Like certain people would get up there and I'm like, oh my God, stop trying so hard. Like, you're like, I'm just so-and-so and I'm going to change your life. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're just going to show me spirit fingers. But no, you came across as like, you were just genuinely trying to be helpful. And so that, I mean, it didn't matter what you were selling me at that point or whatever your product that you had. I was like, okay, this is somebody I could actually work with and talk to. So if I can't talk to you, I'm not going to give you anything.
Sure. And then, so then now you know me better. Now we've had multiple conversations. So is it held true, or is like what you thought of me initially, is it changed?
No, it's good. It's still held true. Now I've got to know you a little more personally and like more of your background. And now you actually get like, now that I've got to talk to you one-on-one and, you know, hire you and expound, I'm like, oh, okay, great. Now you could really explain the things that I don't understand. You know, what you provide. So I'm like, great. Once I trust you, I'm like, here. And this is actually what I was looking for. So I've been telling my wife for years and years and years. And even I've been saying this since I was a kid. I'm like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know how to make sure that I'm secure down the road. And I want to be like comfortable, and I want to give my family something. And I don't want to be working until I'm 100 and die. And then so I was like, I've been saying it for years. I'm like, I need to find somebody that I like. And people like, we'll give you enough. I don't want to just Google somebody and be like, hey, let me just take a shot in the dark and hope that you're not the best salesperson and you're a crook. So no, it worked out perfect actually. So
that's good. Yeah. No, so the first time I actually talked to Ken, I think it was at the after party. That was the first time I actually talked to you.
It was. Yeah.
I think it was the first time. I probably did talk to Trista like occasionally at events or whatever, but I think it was the first time I talked to Trista as well. And yeah, just, it's funny, the people that you can just connect with, you can have a conversation with super easily. Then there's people, like, we all know what it's like when you have to like force a conversation, and it's just like, it's like when your wife wants to have sex or you want to have sex and like one of you doesn't want to have sex and you're like, well, let's do it. And nobody wants to, but you just like feel obligated at some point to like, it's that type that we all know those type of relationships. And then we know the ones that there's like an instant spark, and it was just great. Like, I love getting to hear people's stories and hear their experiences. And so tell us a little bit about your childhood. Like, what was your upbringing like? And then how did you end up in the military? Because I for one, and I respect like deeply anybody who's willing to go serve our country. Me for one, I'm running the other way. If I ever take a bullet, it will be in the back from running away. And somebody's like, he just needs to die, then I'll probably die. But I'm not running towards a firefight. So how do you end up deciding like, oh yeah, this is a good idea, let's go into the military?
Well, childhood to military, it was a whole lot. So I grew up, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My parents were divorced when I was like 1, lived in a little awesome ghetto trailer in the middle of a desert, had awesome older siblings who would torture me. Yeah, I think I told some stories of my siblings torturing the living crap out of me. And you're like, whoa, your childhood sucked. It did suck. It was awesome. It built great character and taught me to be resilient, thank goodness. And that was the only thing I always have to look for the good and the crappy stories. But no, grew up in New Mexico. My mom remarried, and then she married a guy that had a buttload of money, but we weren't like little spoiled rotten kids. That was still in New Mexico. And then, always outgoing, love sports, love camaraderie, love team building, things of that nature. I always had to be part of a group. I was, not always like the coolest kid, but I like the misfit weirdos that everybody knew. Then I moved to Utah when I was 16, lived with my dad. Utah's, not the most exciting when you're a teenager, and thank God there were no cell phones back then. Otherwise I'd be like everybody else, just staring at my phone all day. So got married my senior year, had an oops baby, made my daughter, and then I was working at a Ziploc bag factory. It was awesome, 130 degrees in this building. It was horrible. I'm like, great. If any of you ever shopped at anything besides Glad or Ziploc, you probably used bags I used, 20 years ago. But so my brother was in the military, and he's like, hey, join the military. It's great. I'm like, oh God, I don't want to go in the military. In fact, when they made us take the ASVAB my junior year of high school, I'm like, I will never be in the military. I'm not going to go take this test. Drove my truck up a mountain, blew 2 tires, had to walk down 5 miles, go to some random person's house. I'd be like, can I borrow your phone? Because there's no cell phones. Called my dad, said, come pick me up and bring 2 spare tires. My truck stuck up a mountain. He's like, you little son of a... He was not happy. Should have been a sign right there. But joined the military right out of high school. It was, best thing for my life. I was like, okay, I don't plan to go to college. I'm not a very smart guy. I don't like school. Let's do something that's going to give me a good background. I was like, I need some technical trade. So I said, give me anything in computers. Well, my recruiter lied to me. And he made me a phone operator. Didn't sound like a phone operator, like old school patch panel circuit board. But luckily I got into satellite communications, and that's given me the background for since the military. I was active duty, got out, I'm back in the reserves, and every job I've had from there is because of that and or networking. So
I love that. So I want to ask a few questions here, because these are things that I'm curious. Things that I struggle with essentially. So, and you got a few years on me. How do you raise a resilient child without putting them through hell? So because you and I, we both had pretty great childhoods for who we are now, and we're grateful for all of our childhood, but like
for our lessons learned.
Yeah, like I don't hold any animosity. I don't hold any anger or any resentment, anything. I don't hold anything negative towards my childhood. And I would never want or wish that on my worst enemy either. You know, it's like, I wouldn't want my child to go through that from the emotional side of it. But then there's the other side of it, that who I am now is like, I don't know. I don't think I would be who I am now without that. So how do you create a well-adjusted, resilient person without having them get to the point where they just stop caring about crap that happens and they move on and they choose to be happy no matter what's going on? You know what I'm saying?
Oh no, I get it. So this kind of works, I guess. I have two older kids. So my daughter, she's 20 and she's married. I have a 17-year-old son, and then I have another oops baby who's 2. So now I'm trying to figure out how not to ruin the 2-year-old, because it's a completely different world right now than my other 2 grew up in. They didn't have cell phones until they were older. They definitely didn't have smartphones or social media. And as parents, all I ever hope is, I hope I don't ruin you and scar you and hope you grow up and tell horrible stories. I want you to tell fun stories. Now, my other 2 grew up with me as the part-time dad. I was divorced, but they always told me that they liked the balance, because their mom's personality was one way, so far extreme, and then I was the other extreme of all fun and awesome, but very disciplined. So I don't know. I think I try to not sugarcoat what a lot of parents do with children, and maybe it's the wrong answer, but so I posted a picture on social media the other day, and my 2-year-old, I have a pretty terrifying werewolf mask. Like, it'll hook to your jaw, it opens up its mouth and the teeth, like the lips snarl, and it's pretty scary. And I was terrified of werewolves till I was like 10. I saw one, I'd be like, just freeze my tracks. And she's running around the house with it on. And my mom's like, you probably brainwashed that child. I'm like, I didn't brainwash her. I told her that it's something that can't hurt you. It looks scary, but it's fake. I threw it on the ground, and I kicked it, picked it up, put my fingers through the eye holes. I'm like, it's not real. It's a hat. She's like, oh, it's a hat, and puts it on, starts running around. She's like, rawr. And so, I mean, I think that people try to teach kids and that everything's sunshine and rainbows, and you really can just do whatever you want. And even though my other kids kind of grew up in the generation of everybody gets a trophy, I taught them that if you don't deserve a trophy, you don't get a trophy. Like, I'll go throw it away. You showed up, great now. So my kids always learned to try to progress. They did well in sports. They were very more educated, intelligent than myself. They won state spelling bees. My daughter has a scholarship right now to college. So I just think by not BSing them, kids aren't stupid. Kids are really smart nowadays. They can see through everything because they see everything online. They're connected to a device. Now, that's not real, but they can tell when people are being real with them. So, I mean. Yeah,
that's funny. I was just thinking, how many of us, myself included, we all have trophies that we just need to freaking throw away because they were showed up trophies. How many of you guys listening to this got a showed up trophy that you're all proud of? It's up on your desk. This is I felt really good about this. So I'm making fun of myself a little bit. So this trophy right here, I was supposed to get it at the beginning of the year, but COVID shut down our recognition ceremony. And I love freaking recognition. You put me on stage in front of a bunch of people and you say, Sam did this. Sam's in ecstasy. I love it. I love recognition. Well, so I'm the same day I picked this up, which is a few months late. And I'm number 6 in my whole company in my position. Not bad out of a few thousand people. Number 6. Well, so that's what I'm thinking. Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Number 6. Well, then I get on
this number 6.
Say what?
That's a good job, number 6.
I know, right? Well, then I get on this call with with this other with another company in my same industry in California, and they have the same position structure, everything, and they're like, look, if you're this level, my level, and you're not doing double what I'm doing, then they're like, we basically are. We're asking you when you quit, and maybe you should go find another job. And I'm like, dude, I'm clearing 6. I'm almost making 6 figures. How are you telling somebody who's making almost $100,000 that they should probably quit and go find another job because they're not committed? And so basically what I'm saying is this right here, which sounds good in my small pond, big fish in a small pond. this is like a participation trophy in another company. And so that's probably one I should throw away. But how many of you guys have the same thing where you have this participation trophy that you just should probably throw away? I don't know.
Or use it to fuel you. I mean, like, that could be your motivation. So you're like, hey, I love this trophy. I love this little plaque I got. I mean, a lot of people, it's like whatever motivates you, carrot or the stick. So like, I need positive reinforcement, but sometimes I need somebody to like get in your butt and be like, hey, no, you can do a lot better than this. I do it at work all the time. Like, I think I'm a pretty good officer in the military, and I see other people's working way harder and getting less recognition. I just do pretty good because I network with everybody and I'm friends with important people. And so I'm like, oh, maybe I could try harder, but in military, I don't get paid more. So it doesn't really, why would I want to try harder?
You just try harder to have more influence with the people doing the recognition. That's where this is the thing that gets me is people think they actually get paid for their skills. Nope. And the fact is you get paid. I don't know if it's zero, but it's pretty dang close to zero for your skills. They could find 1,000 people with your skills, but if you suck at communicating, if you suck at networking or collaborating with people, you will get fired. It doesn't matter how smart you are from a numbers perspective or how talented you are at certain things. You will get fired if you can't communicate that. Like the highest paid engineers or the people who are super technical, they're people with great communication skills. The lowest paid, like we all know who Steve Jobs is. How many people know off the top of the head who Steve Wozniak was? Yeah, that was his business partner who did all the technical everything for Steve Jobs. He's a co-founder of freaking Apple, and very few people know who he is because he was not the communicator. He was the tech guy behind the scenes. Equal partner, but got a lot less, right? So it's like the person who has the communication, they get all the brownie points. They get everything. The person who doesn't learn to communicate, you will always like talk about, what do they call it when they have black people who start behind the 8 ball, supposedly? Like they just start out behind in a race. I forget what that's called, but there's a term for it in our country right now for people who are underprivileged, start behind the 8 ball, right? Well, that's you if you don't learn to communicate. And no matter how much we try and put you ahead of that, you will always fall behind if you suck at communication. That I sincerely believe that.
No, that's a good point. So my family, they love teasing me, like my dad and my brothers, most of my brothers. My sisters are a little more supportive, but everyone's like, they always tell me I could fall in a bucket of shit, pardon my language. And they're like, but you always come out cleaner than you were before. Like, I don't get it. You just like have things handed to you. I'm like, no, I don't. It's because I've learned to talk to the people that make the decisions. And I don't like, so at work right now in the military, one of the guys that's in charge, like one of the head guys, everyone's like, I always see you upstairs in his office. Are you guys talking work? I'm like, no, we're talking guns and trucks and camping and boating trips. And we're talking life, because if I want to deal with you in life, I'll deal with you in work. And so, yeah, like you said, it doesn't matter how good of a product you produce or how smart you are. If people don't want to be around you, they don't want to deal with you. So I'm like, and because of like things like that, they're like, oh, hey, I got this job opportunity. I took a job. I was working up at Hill, working for like the government's internet. And I'm like, hey, this is kind of it's not what I'm really wanting right now. It's kind of slow. So I went back to where I used to work. I'm like, hey, do you got any job openings right now? Like more active duty military orders? Like, yes, we do. Come on back. And so, yeah. And then I have people that I work with that they're, like you said, the smartest people, and they could sit there and talk, but I'm like, I just don't want to listen. So I'm like, who can explain this to me in like 20 seconds? Cool, go take it. Awesome, thank you. Lunch on me. Let's go.
Yeah. So the other thing you said you were really good at in our conversations is delegation, and and so you get paid really well to delegate. But I want to talk about that because it's something that I am learning. I don't suck at it yet, but like I'm getting better every day. But delegation has been growing up in a situation where you don't have a lot of things that you can control, and then you become an adult and you are like, oh man, it's like the response to the lack of control as a child is the over response to controlling everything when you become an adult. And then it's really hard to then let go again from a leadership perspective and say, oh yeah, I don't have to control everything. Everybody else can just do their part. So talk about that. How did you like learn to just like delegate and and have confidence that they were going to get it done good enough that you wouldn't get fired or like lose your job?
So that is a good question, because I find myself sometimes still struggling where I try to be the worker bee and forget that I'm the talent manager. And so now I have some bosses who give me crap. They're like, I give you tasks and you farm them out. I'm like, we have a team. So I realized, like, I'm going to use the military since I've been in for 19 years. Yes, a good amount of time. And I learned early on that lots of people are good at their skills. So you can have like one guy over here, and people, like, especially in the military, like, oh, well, you're fat and lazy and you can't do PT or run very quick. But I'm like, this kid's super smart and can, like, fix my computer or set up a satellite antenna or can run an Excel sheet like no other and do like VLOOKUPs and pivot tables and all sorts of crazy stuff that I'm like, all right, how do I change the font on here? It takes me hours. So I learned if somebody could do it in 10 minutes and it's going to take me like an hour or two, like, why would I do that? So, and I also found they just make them feel good about what they're doing. Like, they know, like, I let them know they're doing my work, but I give them the credit too. I don't be like, look at this awesome product I did. So, I kind of sit down and like this, talk to people, find out what they're passionate about, what they're good at. I don't overwork them. And if they do get overworked sometimes, I'm like, food and alcohol motivates people. I'm like, hey, do you want to go to dinner? Or, what's your favorite bottle of wine or a bottle of booze? Or, hey, I'll get you a gift card for some pizzas for your family. And, but I mean, that's the most efficient way. Why would you want to spend like hours upon hours trying to figure something out? Everyone's like, it's good to learn. Well, it's good to do things by yourself too. But if you could use that time better spent on something else, let somebody else who's a pro do it. So now, also, to go with your other part of your question, like, how do you know they're going to get it done? Well, you don't. So it's a learning experience for both of you. So if they fail, which makes you fail, well, then that's where you have a little come to Jesus moment and figure it out. But the only way people are going to learn is by letting them fail. So you can't ensure that it's going to, go off 100% problem free every time. It's not.
Yeah. And it's because your job as the leader at that point to tell your leader and to take. So yeah, the best leadership advice I got, I don't know that I'm perfect at following this. I'm fairly certain I'm not perfect at following this, actually. So before I toot my own horn, but like, as a leader, you have to take 100% of the bad. Like, you got to take responsibility and accountability for 100% of everything that goes wrong. And you don't get any credit for what goes right. Like, you should be passing on the credit for what goes right to your team. But anything that goes wrong, you just own it. You don't blame that on your team. You just say, oh yeah, this is where we're at, and that's on me. So anyways, I've tried to emulate that, but sometimes it's difficult for me. Maybe it's my ego. Maybe it's, I just like thinking good about myself. But that's been difficult in the past for me to like have that type of leadership, without like double checking and trying to figure out, well, what's the best thing? I can do it better. I got called out one time. It's on my mission. So if you've ever been an LDS missionary, then you'll understand this. But the one thing that the LDS church is, I think, better at than most organizations is freaking tracking everything. Like, they track everything. You think you are going to leave or no longer be a member or a part of this organization, and you're wrong. Like, even if you're like, oh, well, take my name off of your call list or take my name off of your list. Guess what? All that happens is it gets moved to your list of people that don't want to be contacted right now. That's it. Like, they still track you. They still track where you move to. They still track everything. You just are on the do not contact list for right now. That's it. So like, anyways, that's maybe more back information than people need to know about the church. But point is, I was sitting there and I was the leader and I was training a new missionary on how to run an area, like make sure you're managing everybody and keeping notes and everything. So I would do these records because I thought I was like really good and detailed, because again, I was comparing myself to the other people that I had served with. I was like, I'm way better at keeping records than these other people are. And so I would choose to like take the responsibility of the record keeping role. And then I let my companion start doing some of the record keeping. and I thought I was detailed. Man, this guy was like double what I was. He was really good. And I had to humble myself and be like, dude, I've been keeping bad records, not just since we've been companions, but for my whole mission. And I haven't been willing to trust other people because I thought I was better at it. Turns out I really sucked compared to somebody who was actually good at it and had a better memory, was able to paint a better picture. And I was like, geez. So then I went and talked about that in one of my meetings, and the guy, our mission president, the person who was over us, was like, well, that's really prideful. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I got a long way to go.
Yeah, I got a coworker or a soldier that works with me just like that. Like, I tease him. He's from the country, from West Virginia. He just got that deep Southern accent, so I always call him hillbilly. I'm like, you're dumb. Not saying that country people are dumb by any means. I'm just giving him a crap because he's a good friend of mine, coworker. And in the military, he's also a military police, so he's a cop. And on the civilian side, he's a cop. And I'm like, and my whole background is IT. So, I work on servers and the internet and satellite communications and radio frequency communications. And so I think I'm good with computers. People assume I am. And I'm like, this guy can fix anything technical wise in a matter of seconds. And he knows how to do it. He doesn't have to research it. He just knows it. So I'm like, hey, man, can you fix this? And like the computer guys having a cop fix his stuff. I'm like, yeah. Because he's really, really smart at it. So no, I learned to give him the accolades. Be like, people like, good job on that product, or you wrote a great memo. I'm like, oh, I didn't write it. I gave it to him because he can actually write really intelligently too. I'm like, type, and I'm like, words. Okay, I don't know what they mean.
Yeah, one finger keyboard typing. That's pretty much me still. It's sad. But it's just not my strength. That's just not my strength. That's why I do podcasts, because like people, when I started getting into like, how do I advertise myself? They're like, oh, well, your profession would be really great for like a blog or certain things. And I don't, people call me out on social media because I suck at writing so much. Like I can't write a blog, but I can talk. I feel like I can talk. It's not always perfect, but at least I like the sound of my own voice. So that helps. In that regard. So I'm curious here. I'm going to ask a question that I don't know where this is going, but I've seen this happen with multiple of my friends who I became friends with after. It seems like I always become friends with after. But what came first, the oops baby or the marriage in high school?
Oh, the oops baby came first.
Okay. So was it, obviously, I mean, I know that you and like myself, there's always a positive to every story. Okay. So I'm not looking for you to like trash on this experience, or be super too happy about the experience. But I'm curious, from a perspective of almost everybody that I know that got married because of an oops baby is divorced. Almost everybody. There's probably only 2 people that I can think of right now that aren't divorced that got married because of an oops baby. So like, is it better to get married to them? Is it better? Like, what do you feel like you learned from getting married that you wouldn't have learned if you said, look, I'm just going to go live my life. Yes, I'll be a responsible father and take care of my baby, but I'm not going to marry somebody that I didn't want to marry before we had a baby. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I don't know. Yeah, it makes sense. So, I mean, I guess like everybody's different with what they want to do. And trust me, I'm not the most positive person. You can ask my wife. She's like, you're a pessimist. You're negative. You always doubt everything and you look for bad in people. I tried not to, but for like my life, for things like this, I try to obviously look for the good. The whole thing about, we talked about being resilient. So I'm actually grateful. Like some people, they just look backwards like, oh, if I didn't have this kid, I could have gotten into, college sports, or who knows where I would have been. Like, well, who knows, you wouldn't be some junkie out there. Like, if I didn't have a kid, I probably would have went to college and partied too hard. And, at least now I know how to handle my drinking. At that age, I probably wouldn't know how to. And as far as like marrying her, there was a lot going on. Like some of my family was like, you need to leave right now. Like, you're not marrying this girl, which I'm a very defiant human being. And I was 17 years old. I'm like, oh, joke's on you, Mom. Yes, I am going to marry this girl, but you told me I can't. And so it worked out good. I mean, I got 2 kids from her, and we are still actually pretty good friends and keep in touch. And like when my kids were small, we'd get together. But I'm glad that experience actually happened. And I'm glad that I did marry her. I mean, yes, everything we do in life is a learning experience. So it actually made me grow up faster, made me learn how to take care of myself, take care of kids. Like, I see people nowadays and they're like young people and they're like, I can't do anything. They're 26 years old, living at home. And they're like, I can't afford anything. I'm like, yeah, everything's more expensive now, but you can go rent an apartment with 2 friends. Like, just figure it out. I don't know. I just feel like the whole resilient thing, kids just like, oh, I just can't do it. I want to go to, movies all the time and concerts and spend my money on this. And like, all my money went to bills and my car. So.
Yeah, that's the part that I was literally just talking to the client yesterday about that. It's like, oh, well, we make all this money and we don't see any. I'm like, dude, one of them was married, actually 2 of my clients yesterday married somebody who was like 7 years younger than them, which that's about what you did with Trista. It's not 7 years.
It's 3, but
it's
yeah.
3. But so when I was dating, I was 22, looking to get married, and I tried dating some like 18-year-olds, which is only a 4-year gap, like 18, 19, 20-year-olds. But honestly, I couldn't do it. And the age gap I don't think the age gap was a problem, but it was definitely like a life experience gap. I started moving out of my house for months at a time. And when I was 14 years old, by the time I was 16, 17, I had full-time jobs. Because I was homeschooled, I grew up homeschooled, so I didn't even have to ever go to work. So I had full-time jobs. I was paying my own rent. I was paying my own gas. Like, everything in my life, I was paying for myself. And so from like a life experience perspective, I had 8 years of the experience of basically being an adult, taking care of myself, fending for myself, making all my own decisions. And so then when I was trying to date somebody who was 20 years old, still in college, still has never left their house, they're still on all their parents' food bill, rent, phone bill, their car, they don't even own their own car, they're still driving their parents' cars. And it's like, dude, how do you expect to, I don't know, it's just such a different level. It was hard to communicate with them, which ultimately, that's why I don't think it worked. It's like, yeah, you're just too much of a child still. And it doesn't matter the age. It's like, you are a child mentally.
No, you're 100% correct. I mean, you could be 40 years old and be somebody that's still like that. Same thing. Like, I lived with my parents till I got married at 17. But yeah, so it was pretty much like living there, like rent free. They gave me a vehicle, an old Chevy truck, but I had to pay the insurance, which was like $150 back in the late 90s. And then I had a pager. That's, shows some age right there too.
Oh yeah.
I paid that. They didn't give me a pager. I paid everything. So if I wanted like a cube of Mountain Dew or something, like, I had to buy it. So I lived there rent free and got groceries more or less. But if I needed like deodorant or toothpaste, like when Christmas came around, I'm like, yay, I get deodorant and toothpaste for the next like 6 months. Other than that, I had to buy it. Which, same thing with kids. Like I've actually been married 3 times now. Trista's lucky number 3. But my second wife, I married somebody that was older than me, and she constantly was like belittling me. She worked for an IT type company. They did software, and she was like a marketing director. And so she got shown the lifestyle. We stayed at like penthouse suites and got taken to sports events and got box tickets. I got spoiled. But she's always telling me like, nobody wants to listen to you because you're just some young kid. I was 24. She was her mid 30s. And she's like, you've never done anything. You're just a child. And I'm like, I've, been married, have had 2 kids, been divorced, been in the military for 4 years, been deployed, invaded a country, buried friends, and you're 30 years old and you went through bankruptcy because you had $20,000 in credit card debt and you couldn't get your shit together. So who's the kid? Right?
That's insane, man. It's so funny. I have clients come in often and they're like, oh, I've got all of this debt and I think the only option out is bankruptcy. I'm like, okay, so how much debt do you have? $15,000 of credit card debt, $20,000, $40,000. Like, really? That sounds like an average day in Sam's life. Like, who doesn't have debt? And it's not that it's bad. Like, I think if you can't manage debt, that's an entirely different conversation. But just about every business I know has it just depends on what day of the month we're talking about. Like, I pay off thousands of dollars worth of debt and I get thousands of dollars worth of debt based on what day of the month it is, right? So that's just running a business. And so for me, I'm just like, no, bankruptcy should be like a last resort. And $40,000, you erasing, this gets into habits. I'm excited to hear your comments on this when it comes to like fitness and military experience. But like, if you create a habit of just like starting over and wiping the slate clean because you're too overwhelmed with what's happening, and that's the habit in life that you're creating, dude, you're setting yourself up for some serious heartache along the way. Probably multiple marriages, probably just estranged family member relationships, because you can't just eliminate stuff. Money's one area where you probably could claim bankruptcy multiple times, but I have some clients who their plan is every 5 years to just claim a Chapter 5 bankruptcy, rent for the rest of their life, build up a bunch of debt, and then claim bankruptcy because they're like, well, now I can claim it again, and I'm going to have to, rather than building a habit of accountability and like finding a way to earn some more money. Like, money is so flipping easy to make. Like, it's not a difficult thing to make money. Not in our society, guys. They just printed $7 trillion. That's more money than America's printed in the last 75 years. They printed in like a few months. So like there's lots of reasons why that's concerning, but just put in perspective, there's so much money right now in our society. It is not hard to get. But if you live a life of, well, I just need to get rid of these few $1,000s worth of debt, what would you rather have? Build a business where you can get out of debt in 6 months, or even if it takes you a year, once you're out of debt, now you have an income stream of $40,000, or claim bankruptcy. You can't buy a house. It's hard to buy a car. It cripples you for the next 5 years of your life. Or you could pay off your debt in 1 year and have 4 years of a business income. Like, it's just crazy that people will choose the seemingly easier way out to run from their debts or their commitments, when ultimately it harms them later in life. So yeah, speak to that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that concept.
Yeah. So I'm not one, I don't know. Like, I am one of those people who enjoy my credit score. I just checked it again and I'm at an 830. Boom. Woo. Yeah. I was like, I wonder if I could get a perfect credit score. And I attribute some of that to my ex-wife. She's like, we're not using credit cards ever. If we can't make it, we budget, we go to zero, and we stay at zero. So, I mean, I'd be like 10 days out from payday. I'm like, I got half a tank of gas. I can drive to work this many times. There'd be days where I had to stay at work and sleep in the barracks with one of the soldiers who lived there because I had not enough gas to get home. And I made it work. Rather than be like, let me just swipe a card. Everyone's like, hey, plastic, swipe a card. So when I finished college, and I went to college later in life, I think I graduated in my late 20s. And I went to online school because I was working a full-time job and had kids, and working a part-time job, which was the military. I used to also coach gymnastics for a part-time job. So I had 2 part-time jobs. And so that's why I went to online school. And I finished school and I wasn't smart. So I have my GI Bill that pays for a good portion of college. I had a military discount for tuition, but I still took out max loans because I'm like, oh, well, I need money. I'm poor. So I graduated with my bachelor's degree in psychology because I gave up on software engineering because I'm not that smart. And I had $53,000 in debt. And then Trista graduated college, and she was a lot better. She had $20,000 in debt. And I'm like, okay, great. I got our bills, and it says for your minimum payments to actually, like pay it off in a decent amount of time, I was going to owe like $780 some odd a month. I'm like, man, that's like a crappy Mercedes payment. And I was like destroyed. I'm like, what am I going to do? So I went back to college. I started college again to defer my payments. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But I didn't ever once think of, let me just write it off or do something or be stupid. Like, some people will go to college their whole life to defer bills for the rest.
I was just going to say that.
Are you kidding me? Like, I know people that do that. I'm like, why? So, I mean, yes, luckily with my background and having been in the military, and I have a, government clearance. And so, I mean, praise the universe or God or whoever you want to believe in, the peanut butter monster. I got a phone call. And they're like, hey, are you interested in a job overseas? And I'm like, where? They're like, Afghanistan. I'm like, nope, hung up. I've gotten hundreds of those phone calls. I'm like, I don't want to go over there. I've been there a couple times. Anyway, so I was talking to Trista, and I was like, "Hey, I got this phone call." I was like, "Let me call them back." I like, would she's like, "We'll see how much money it is." So I called them back. I'm like, "What? Okay, give me the rundown. I may be interested." They're like, "Hey, well, you have a satellite engineer background. You've done this for 15 years. This is what the job is." I'm like, "Oh, I understand that. I wasn't a pro at it." And they're like, and it paid really well. So I'm like, "Do I sacrifice a year of my family's life to become debt free?" And I did. I went over there, took the job. So I remember talking to my sister before I went, and a lot of my family are school teachers. They all have student loans for a long, long, long time.
And they're going to have them for
their 50s and late 40s, and they still have student loans. I'm like, I don't want to have to be paying this kind of payment and rotate bills. I want to grow up. So yeah, I took the job. I went overseas to Afghanistan for a year. I paid off $73,000 in 6 months. Whatever money I had left over from my savings account, I'm like, all right, here we're trying to get out of debt. I zeroed out my savings account and I dropped it all onto my largest interest payment for my loans. I paid off those 7% loans like that, and then I was down to the 3% loans. And every month I gave Tristan an allotment of money, and I took 80% of my bill, whatever she needed to live on, and I took the rest of it and paid it off. I was living in Afghanistan, so I was living in a plywood hut building. And 6 months later, paid it off, and then we took a trip to Bali for almost a month. So I was like, hey, and I wouldn't spend money like that. I'm not frivolous and just throw money around. I'm like, once in a lifetime opportunity. I'm never gonna have this kind of income again. Big money coming at me. So no, you're right. Sorry, long story. I know I talk a lot, but people who just want to write stuff off and walk away, I don't want to get into politics, but everybody's like, oh, that person's filed bankruptcy dozens of times. Well, in business, that's different, because all you're doing is rebranding and renaming what your business is. And you're just, people in business do that. But yeah, so if you do that and just think you could just walk away when things, when the tough get going, you're never going to be successful in life. You're going to walk away. Oh, this car, it sucks. And I've had problems with cars. I've owned 40 some odd cars, and I'm 38. So people I don't like it anymore. Let's go buy a new one. Well, next thing you know, you're 4 cars in 5 years, and you're upside down 20 grand, and you create more debt, and you try to walk away from it again. All you're doing is shuffling the suck in your life. And grow up, move on, figure it out.
Yeah, I completely agree. It just blows my mind that people have this mentality. And I think the underlying issue with the mentality is not that you want to escape something necessarily. I think it's that you don't believe in yourself enough that you can actually pay it off. I think that's the underlying issue, right? We want to escape because you don't believe you can face the challenge. What's interesting about that is, the creditors, the people that you owe money to, and a lot of people don't know this, but when it gets to a point where they can't pay their bills anymore, they stop charging you interest. When a creditor stops believing that you're going to pay it back, they send it to collections. No more interest is charged. Yep, we're not ever going to get this money. In fact, on their books, they write it off. On their books, if you have a debt with AT&T, let's say you owe them this money for a phone, and you owe them $1,000, and they've been trying to get $1,000 from you for the last 3 years, and you just haven't paid them. Okay. On their books, this is called GAAP accounting. Go look it up. It's crazy, but they just write it off. They consider it a loss. They don't pay taxes on any money that would have come from that. And then they sell, this is how they recoup some of their costs. They sell your debt. So they sell that $1,000 to a creditor agency for $200. So they say, look, here's a bill for $1,000. If you can collect on it, you'll get the $1,000. I want $200, $500 right now. So then you can go to that credit agency and you could negotiate that $1,000 down to $500 because they're still making a $300 profit. So they don't need the full $1,000 to make a profit. They only need a little bit. And AT&T got their $200. This other person got their $300, and you saved $500. Now, I'm not suggesting don't pay your bills. I think the better answer is have some confidence in yourself, have some belief in yourself that you can go earn $1,000 and pay off your dang bill.
But that being said, so I've been turning to collections a few times because I know how it actually works. And so I had a Gold's Gym membership multiple times where I learned to prepay later because of being charged all these. So I was like, I had this monthly membership and then I started getting screwed and they added on all these fees. I'm like, no, I'm done. So I called their billing department. I'm like, how do I pay this? Well, I actually dated a girl who worked for the billing department for Gold's Gym, and I realized that there's nobody over like 21 years old in there. They purposely don't have a manager, and nobody has those skills to try to negotiate to fix it. So they con me into like paying a bill, and then it's going to be done. Next day, I owed even a bigger bill. So I'm like, turn me into collections. Doesn't ruin your credit. You'll take a ding on it, but when it goes to collections, like Sam's saying, you have the opportunity to actually pay it off at a much lower rate. So I was like, cool, turn me into collections like 4 months later. And they're like, hey, you owe like $1,500. I'm like, I'll give you $650 right now, cash. They're like, done. So I didn't have to pay all of it. Now, yeah, like you're saying, don't do that with all your bills. And I don't know if you could even do that with your credit cards because that's a different type of debt. But understand something, money, or make the money and pay it off. Just don't get yourself into something you can't handle.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overarching thing is just be smart with money. If you don't know how money works, call somebody and they can teach you how, right? I'd love to be a person who can teach you how, right? But that's the overarching thing. But there's levels of understanding, and like there's sometimes where that's the best option, right? Send me to collections, whatever. I'll settle this outside just so we can get it taken care of. But understand, like money is all just kind of figment of our imagination, and it is what only like. Its value is what we put on it. And when you understand how money works, it's a lot easier to negotiate terms with money because like there's actual like science behind how money works. But if you think it works the way that all the creditors are telling you it works, you're wrong. Their interest is getting interest off of you. That's the only it's the only reason they're charging you still. Back to my original point, if they're still charging you interest, they believe in you. Like if nobody else in this world believes in you, the company who lends you the money, they believe in you and they believe you're going to pay it off. If they didn't believe in you, they'd stop charging you. Like if that's not like a boost of confidence, hey, at least they believe I can still pay off this 40 grand of debt. So how can I do it, right? Because they understand how money works and so they know it's possible. And so if nobody else believes in you, take comfort and some confidence in the fact that the person who's charging you believes in you.
Your creditors believe in you.
Yeah. I think, anyways, like I say, I'll turn anything into a positive. I think that's super funny. Really quick to go back to a point you said your recruiter lied to you. Is there any recruiter who tells the truth?
I don't know. I'm actually friends with a lot of recruiters, and a lot of my coworkers now used to be recruiters. I think they just exaggerate the story and, they just polish that turd. So some kids are like, oh, they're like, hey, if you take this job, like a lot of crappy jobs in the military come with very large bonuses, like $40,000 bonus. So like we need so whatever they need to fill those quotas. They have quota goals too. We need to fill this job. So we'll give you a bonus. But, I don't know. I actually ran into my recruiter like 10 years later at a Veterans Day parade or Veterans Day. It was at my kid's school. They had a Veterans Day program. I showed up. I'm in uniform. I see him. I'm like, I recognize you. He's like, oh my gosh. He's like, Private Harrison. I'm like, well, I'm Drill Sergeant Harrison now, but it was a good time. So now, he lied he didn't lie as much as his boss did, because his boss, once he brought me in, his boss was the one that made me pick a job. But I said, hey, I'm married, I have a baby, I'm 18, I'm not going to go into a combat arms job, I need a technical trade. And that's why they're like, oh, you're going to do this networking, switching systems, engineer, operator, maintainer. I'm like, sounds great, phone operator. But luckily I learned how to do satellite communications on the way.
Yeah. So two things are important there. One, if you just think your title, whatever you do for work, your business is just bland and boring, there's always a way to make that thing look amazing, sound amazing. No matter if it's just like, yeah, it's just this basic thing. Like it's really basic what I do. You give it a nice title, people are like, oh man, thank you so much for helping me with this title that you gave it. And you're like, yeah, no problem. I'm so happy that I could help you. And really on the background, you're just doing a simple little thing. But they give it a nice title. So it sounds like important. The other thing is, I don't know that, and this is just life, because I'm a recruiter in my business. I recruit people all the time. I don't know honestly how to be honest with somebody without them experiencing what actually is going on. I don't know how to actually display it truth. I mean, I feel like I can tell them the truth, but I don't know that they actually understand how much it's going to suck learning something new. And so everybody feels like they were lied to. Does that make sense? Even if they were like blatantly truthful, hey, it's going to suck. I'm going to spit in your face. I'm going to like, whatever, all this crap is going to happen. This is exactly what it is. Some people, they just have so many stars in their eyes of like how incredible something is going to be because they think it's different than what everything else that happened, that they just don't listen. And then you did your best to give them an accurate representation of how crappy it's going to be. And they still are like, you lied to me, because they had a false conception of what it was going to be.
Well, it's like when you're explaining anything to anybody, like I always find out like less is more. You tell them too much and they're like you said, they're just staring like, I don't know what you're saying. Like the basics of the overview of what can or will happen. You don't always go into, the risks and there's risks and everything. So, I mean, even our conversation when I hired you and gave you access to a lot of money, and I'm like, I know that shit could go south, but as long as it could bounce back and I don't need this money for 30 more years or whatever, let's have at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's important. And that's exactly why I started out this question, like asking, or this podcast, like, what was your experience before? What's it been since we met in? Cause I understand that there's this misconception. I want to improve. I want to get better at like helping people get the right impression sooner. Like that's a goal of mine. I want people to know sooner exactly what this experience is going to be like. So I always ask people like, whoa, this is what you thought of me up on stage. There's a certain view, power, structure, everything of me there, but like, what's been the experience after the fact working with me? What does that look like? And what have you moved into? So it's the same question. It's important to find out for yourself, get that feedback from your wife, from your kids. Like, am I actually representing what I say I'm going to represent? Like, it's a good question to ask people. Ask your 5 closest friends. Like, do you think I'm a liar? Like, do I keep my word to you? Do I show up when I say I'm going to show up? Like, these are simple things that are like good human behaviors that you should find out, like what your friends actually think. I think it's a good question.
It's true. No, that's totally right. 100% again. I mean, and not to keep like going, but I mean, I know you a little bit from talking to you, but then I know you more from working with you and, becoming one of your clients, but same thing. Like, we talked and you gave me an overview. And then I talked to one of my buddies who but yet again, the little country boy, super smart financially. Like this guy makes like $30,000-$40,000 a day doing trading on the side. So I was like, hey, what's this thing he talked to me about? He's like, I actually don't know that. So he started digging into it, gave me that article I gave to you. And Sam's like, well, it's a great article. Let's go through and explain step by step to me. So I'm like, cool. Well, he's not trying to lie to me. I'm like, so how do you make money? Because I know you need to make money. This is your job. You're not just doing, services for free unless you're like some good Samaritan worth like hundreds of millions of dollars, self-rich. And now you explain it to me and said, here's how I get paid. Here's how I'm going to take my money. Here's where it comes from. It doesn't come out of your money. I'm like, cool, great. I hope you get as much money as you can by bringing me over because, I make money, you make money. We make the world go round. We help each other out. And I didn't feel like you lied to me once.
No, well, I didn't. At least not that I'm aware. If I ever find out I lied to you, I'll be the first to come to you and say, hey, that happened one time. I misunderstood how taxes work. So when I was explaining something to a client, I was like, yeah, this is how it works. Cause this is what I had understood from the CPAs and people that I talked to. So I was just explaining how I believe something worked. And come to find out, he did more research and he's like, Sam, I don't think that this works the way you said it works. And I'm like, well, thanks for letting me know. I'll go ask my CPA friends. So then I got like more specific, was like actually got down to the technical, got on the phone, pulled up the IRS code with 3 accountants. Like, hey, we got to figure this out, right? I can't be a liar. So finally I found out that I had lied. Like I think lying comes with intention, but basically I had spread misinformation because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was like, actually, sorry. Like, so I called the guy back. I was like, dude, you're right. Like this is what I understood. These are the small caveats that are different than I understood them. So yeah, I totally understand if you don't want to work with me anymore, because like that was my bad. It turns out I still have one of his accounts, but the account that we set up with him for that specific reason, he moved to another company, which is fine. Like, I totally understand. I was like, I'm willing to be upfront. Like, if I say something, I'm the first to call myself out if I'm aware, because why not? Like, I don't have anything to hide. I do my best every day, just like all of us. We all make mistakes sometimes. And if you can respect that, great. If you can't, no hard feelings, right?
Right.
So, no, I love that. So I'm curious. So I have this section that I call Legacy on Rapid Fire. I just ask you 5 questions that 1 word, 1 sentence answers. Answer them to the best of your ability. They don't have to be like super specific. But I'm curious, what do you feel like is holding you back from reaching the next level of your legacy or how you want to impact the world?
I think mostly just fear, the fear of failure. Like, I'm always afraid of, why do I want to try something when it could potentially just fail? And then I feel crushed.
Yeah. How do you get over that?
Lately, by trying to do something that makes me uncomfortable, getting out of my comfort zone, trying something outside the everyday norm.
Yeah, I love that. So what do you think the hardest thing you've ever accomplished has been? Like, if you had to say, this is it, what's the hardest thing you've ever accomplished?
The hardest thing I've ever accomplished. Honestly, I'd say I mean, it's going to sound like some BS thing, but coming to realization with myself, like, everything I've been through, it's all a good thing. Like, you take it and make it you own it. So trying to quit blaming other people and blaming everything else in life and just realizing, hey, I'm the only one that can try to fix this. It's my problem, not everybody else's.
Amen to that. Amen to that. So then what's your greatest success to this point in your life?
My greatest success, I don't know. I've seen my kids. Like, I mean, that's pretty much like talking about your legacy, what lives on. I mean, if I make shitty human beings, that's a pretty shitty legacy. So my kids are my greatest success.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't actually met any of them, but Trista has shown me quite a few videos of your 2-year-old daughter. She doesn't show me the dancing videos of your other ones, but I'm just kidding. But yeah, your 2-year-old daughter, and she's freaking cute. My son is, one is like almost 2, the other's about a little over 3. And yeah, like, little kids are such incredible humans. Like, it's mind blowing that whatever person in the universe or whatever, God, what do you call him? The peanut butter
monster?
Whatever you believe in, right? Like, the fact that we get entrusted to like coach and guide these little humans and get honestly the blessing of watching something grow and develop, a being grow and develop. It is like the most incredible thing ever. If you don't have kids, I look forward to when you have kids. If you have kids and you hate them, I hope that one day you can love them. I know that life gets stressful sometimes, but like, yeah, I love being a dad. I can't think of anything more fulfilling in my life than being a dad. Love it. So what is a book that you would recommend to the Fuel Your Legacy audience? I'm curious.
A book. So I am not a very good reader. I have not read a lot of books in my life. And so, not to take too much more time up, but so one of my bosses I used to work for, I was a general's personal assistant, and he had a reading list. Most generals in the military do. And so he's like, you need to go on my reading list and read a book. So I looked at the reading list, and you're going to laugh. So is Dr. Seuss's Oh, the Places You'll Go. And that is like, what? So I read it as a kid, read it as an adult. I'm like, that is one of the most profound, deep, meaning books as an adult. And if you haven't read it, read it. It'll take you 7 minutes and you'll be like, holy crap. Talks about your feelings and depressions and how you pull yourself out of it and how you get to where you want to go and you are in control of your life.
Yeah, actually that book, I have had multiple business and personal mentors of mine, and almost every one of them has recommended that book at one point in the coaching process, because it's such a great book. It's almost like a book that's more known in the entrepreneurial and coaching industry than it is in the child industry. Like it's pretty interesting how many people know that book who are successful coaches, leaders, things like that. So that's a good book. He's right. If you guys haven't read that, you should go get it from the library. I'm sure they've got it. Oh, the Places You'll Go by Dr. Seuss. Or you can go buy it on Amazon and read it to your kids every night. Make sure that it's brainwashing them into believing that they are their creators and that they get to hold their own life together.
Yep.
Yeah, love it. Hey, well, we ran out of time, which is always fun. I got to hop on another call. But hey, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. I know you're supposed to be working or something like that.
Yeah, it's all good. I'm working from home today.
From home. But I'm glad that I could take some taxpayers' dollars and invest them into people who can listen to your experiences, because they're incredible. I'm just grateful for your sharing your journey with us.
No, thanks for having me on, Sam.
No problem. Okay, guys, we'll catch you next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show. Thanks for joining us. If what you heard today resonates with you, please like, comment, and share on social media. Tag me. And if you do give me a shout out, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Thanks to all of those who've left a review. It helps spread the message of what it takes to build a legacy that lasts. And we'll catch you next time on Fuel Your Legacy.